October 24, 1944, 10 a.m., Hill 623, Eastern France. Technical Sergeant Charles Coolidge walks through dense woods near Belmont-sur-Butant, scouting positions for his machine guns. He's accompanied by a sergeant from Company K, both men moving quietly through the Vosges Mountains forest. They're looking for the perfect spot to set up interlocking fields of fire to protect the 3rd Battalion's right flank. Then they see movement through the trees. Not one German soldier, not a patrol, but an entire company. At least 100 German infantry, maybe more, advancing through the forest. The 2 Americans are outnumbered at least 50 to 1. Most men would retreat, call for backup, get the hell out of there. Charles Coolidge does something different. He steps out of cover, stands tall, and calls out to the Germans. "Surrender!" It's pure bluff, a show of assurance and boldness. Maybe the Germans will think there are more Americans in the woods. Maybe they'll hesitate. Instead, the Germans open fire. What happens in the next 4 days will earn Charles Coolidge the Medal of Honor. It will prove that leadership under fire can turn green recruits into veteran soldiers. And it will show that one man's calm courage can hold off an entire German company for 4 days without losing a single American life. Because before he was a war hero, Charles Coolidge was just a bookbinder from Tennessee who saw war coming and decided not to waste time on college. August 4, 1921, Signal Mountain, Tennessee. Charles Henry Coolidge is born to Walter Parlin Coolidge and Grace Irene McCracken Coolidge. Signal Mountain is a small town perched on a plateau overlooking Chattanooga. The Coolidge family runs a printing business, Chattanooga Printing and Engraving. It's modest work, honest work, serving the Chattanooga community. Charles grows up during the Great Depression, watching his father fight to keep the business alive. Walter Coolidge works hard to keep the doors open and his employees paid. These lessons about loyalty and duty will shape young Charles for the rest of his life. Charles attends local schools, a quiet kid, studious, responsible. He's not the biggest or the strongest or the most athletic, but he's dependable, the kind of person you can count on when things get difficult. After school, he works at the family printing business. He learns bookbinding, the intricate craft of assembling pages into bound volumes. It requires patience, precision, attention to detail, skills that will serve him well in a very different profession. 1939. Charles graduates from Chattanooga High School. His parents expect him to go to college, maybe study business, eventually take over the printing company. Charles has other ideas. Years later, when asked why he didn't go to college, Coolidge gives a characteristically blunt answer. "I figured war was coming, and it didn't take a whole lot of education to go and shoot people." In 1939, war is already raging in Europe. Germany has invaded Poland, Britain and France have declared war. Charles can read the writing on the wall. America will be in this fight eventually. Instead of college, he goes to work full-time at the family business. Bookbinding, printing, running errands, learning the trade from his father. He's making money, contributing to the household, waiting for what he knows is inevitable. December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor. The Japanese attack the U.S. Pacific Fleet. America enters World War II. Charles Coolidge has been expecting this moment for 2 years. June 16, 1942, Charles enlists in the United States Army. He's 20 years old, single, no dependents, ready to serve. He reports for basic training at Fort McPherson, Georgia, then advanced infantry training at Fort McClellan, Alabama, and Camp Croft, North Carolina. He's assigned to the 36th Infantry Division, a Texas National Guard unit, specifically Company M, 3rd Battalion, 141st Infantry Regiment. Company M is a heavy weapons company, machine guns and mortars. These are the big guns that provide supporting fire for the rifle companies. Coolidge is trained on the 30 caliber water-cooled heavy machine gun. It weighs 93 pounds with the tripod, fires 450 rounds per minute. In the right hands, it can stop an infantry assault cold. April 1943, the 36th Infantry Division ships out from the United States. Destination, North Africa. The division arrives at Oran, Algeria, part of Operation Torch. By the time they get there, the fighting in North Africa is mostly over. The Germans and Italians surrendered in May 1943. The 36th Division uses North Africa for training and preparation. They're getting ready for the next operation, something bigger, bloodier. September 9, 1943, Operation Avalanche, the Allied invasion of mainland Italy at Salerno. The 36th Infantry Division leads the assault. This is Coolidge's first combat, his first time under fire. The Germans are waiting on the high ground above the beaches. Artillery, mortars, machine guns, everything aimed at the landing zones. The 36th Division takes heavy casualties, hundreds of men killed in the first days. But they establish the beachhead and push inland. Coolidge fights through the Salerno campaign, learning what war really means. Not the training films or the patriotic speeches, but the reality. Friends dying, the smell of cordite and blood, the constant fear. October 1943. The division advances north toward the winter line. This is Germany's main defensive position south of Rome. Mountains, rivers, fortifications, every advantage to the defender. January 1944, the Battle of the Rapido River. The 36th Division is ordered to cross the Rapido River and break through the winter line. It's a suicidal mission from the start. The Germans have the far bank fortified, machine guns covering every crossing point. The river is swollen with winter rains, current running fast. The attack begins at night, American soldiers trying to cross in rubber boats. German machine guns open up, tracers ripping through the darkness. Boats are shredded, men drown in the freezing water, bodies float downstream. The assault is a disaster. Over 1,600 casualties in less than 48 hours. Coolidge survives somehow. February 1944, the Battle of Monte Cassino. The 36th Division fights for months trying to take this mountain topped by an ancient monastery. The Germans use the high ground to devastating effect. Every assault is met with withering fire. American soldiers cut down by the hundreds. Coolidge's machine gun section provides covering fire, trying to suppress German positions. It's brutal, grinding combat with little progress. May 1944, Operation Diadem. A massive Allied offensive finally breaks the winter line. The 36th Division is part of the assault, pushing through German defenses. May 22, 1944, the division lands at Anzio. They've been pulled out of Monte Cassino and inserted at the Anzio beachhead. The beachhead has been under siege for months, finally breaking out. The 36th Division helps open the gates of Rome for the Fifth Army. For his actions during the Italian campaign, Coolidge earns the Silver Star. The citation doesn't specify exactly what he did, just leadership and gallantry under fire. June 1944, the 36th Division is pulled out of Italy. They're sent back to rest and refit, preparing for another operation. August 15, 1944, Operation Dragoon, the Allied invasion of southern France. The 36th Division lands on the French Riviera near Saint-Tropez. For once, the landing is relatively easy. German resistance is light, the defenders are spread thin. The division pushes inland rapidly, advancing up the Rhone River Valley. By now, Charles Coolidge has been promoted to technical sergeant. He's a squad leader, responsible for a heavy machine gun section. His men trust him. He's proven himself in combat from Salerno to Anzio. September 1944, the division reaches the Vosges Mountains in eastern France. They're approaching the Siegfried Line, Germany's main defensive fortifications. The terrain becomes more difficult, dense forests and steep hills. The weather is turning cold, rain and mud, autumn in the Vosges. The German resistance stiffens, they're defending their homeland now. October 1944, the 36th Division is tasked with clearing the Vosges Mountains. Slow, difficult fighting through dense woods. Visibility is limited to a few yards, ambushes are constant. The 3rd Battalion, 141st Infantry is advancing toward the town of Belmont-sur-Bouton. October 24, 1944, morning. Technical Sergeant Charles Coolidge receives his mission. He's to lead a section of heavy machine guns to Hill 623, east of Belmont-sur-Bouton. He'll be supported by one platoon from Company K, about 40 riflemen. His mission is to cover the right flank of the 3rd Battalion and support their advance. It's a standard assignment. Set up defensive positions, provide covering fire. Coolidge takes a sergeant from Company K and goes forward to scout positions. They need to find the best spots to set up the heavy and light machine guns. Interlocking fields of fire, good visibility, cover for the gunners. They're moving through dense woods, trees blocking out the sky. Then they walk into a German force. An entire infantry company, at least 100 men, maybe more. The Germans are as surprised as the Americans. For a moment, nobody moves. Then Charles Coolidge makes a split-second decision. He steps forward, projecting confidence and authority. "Surrender!" It's a bluff, pure and simple. Maybe the Germans will think there's a whole battalion behind him. Maybe they'll hesitate long enough for Coolidge to get away. Instead, the Germans open fire. Coolidge pulls his M1 carbine and fires back. He hits 2 Germans, wounding both. Then he and the Company K sergeant retreat, running back toward their own lines. Bullets tear through the trees around them, branches snapping, bark flying. They make it back to where the rest of the men are waiting. Coolidge quickly assesses the situation. He has his machine gun section and 1 platoon from Company K. Maybe 40 to 50 men total. Most of them fresh replacements. These aren't battle-hardened veterans, they're new guys who just arrived at the front. For many of them, this is their first experience under fire. There's no officer present. The Company K platoon leader is somewhere else. Technical Sergeant Coolidge is the senior man on the spot. He assumes command without hesitation. The Germans are coming, at least a company of them. Coolidge positions his men quickly, setting up a defensive perimeter. Machine guns here, riflemen there, fields of fire overlapping. He speaks calmly to the new replacements, his voice steady. "Pick your targets, conserve your ammunition, wait for my command." The Germans attack. They come through the trees, rifles firing, shouting. The new American soldiers start to panic, fingers tightening on triggers. Coolidge stands up. Right in the middle of the firing, bullets cracking past his head. He stands up. He walks along the defensive line, completely exposed to enemy fire. "Steady," he calls out. "Wait for them to get closer." He stops at each position, speaking to individual soldiers. "You're doing fine, keep your head down, aim for center mass." His calmness is contagious. If the sergeant can stand up and walk around while bullets are flying, maybe this isn't so bad. The new soldiers settle down, start firing controlled shots instead of wild bursts. The German attack breaks against the American defensive line. They retreat back into the forest. First attack repulsed. Coolidge knows they'll be back. October 25th, 1944. The Germans attack again and again. Multiple assaults throughout the day, probing for weak points. Each time Coolidge walks the line under fire, encouraging his men, directing their fire, personally shooting Germans who get too close. The rain starts, cold autumn rain in the Vosges Mountains. The soldiers are soaked, shivering, exhausted. No hot food, limited ammunition, no relief in sight. Coolidge keeps them focused, keeps them fighting. October 26, 1944, 3rd day of continuous combat. The Germans keep coming. They're determined to break through this position. Coolidge's men are running low on ammunition, food, water. Some of the replacements are on the verge of breaking. Coolidge moves from position to position, always visible, always calm. "We're holding them," he tells his men. "They can't get through us." Another attack repulsed, another day survived. October 27, 1944, dawn. 4th day. The Germans bring up reinforcements. 2 tanks rumbling through the forest. German infantry following behind the armor. This is the final push. Everything the Germans have. The tanks open fire. High explosive shells slamming into the American positions. Trees explode, dirt and rocks flying. Machine gun fire from the tanks sweeps across the defensive line. Coolidge grabs a bazooka. The M1A1 bazooka is a 2.36-inch rocket launcher, effective against tanks at close range. Coolidge advances toward the tanks, crouching low, moving from tree to tree. He gets to within 25 yards of the lead tank. 25 yards. Close enough to see the tank commander in the turret. He aims the bazooka, steadies himself, pulls the trigger. Nothing happens. The bazooka malfunctions, fails to fire. Coolidge tries again, same result. The weapon is useless. The tank turret swings toward him, the main gun lowering. Coolidge throws aside the bazooka and runs. The tank fires, the shell screams past him and explodes in the trees. Coolidge dives behind cover, his ears ringing from the blast. He needs another weapon, something to stop those tanks. He gathers every hand grenade he can carry. Fragmentation grenades, pineapple-shaped, deadly within a 15-yard radius. Coolidge crawls forward, staying low, using every bit of cover. German infantry is advancing behind the tanks. Coolidge pulls the pin on a grenade, counts to 2, throws. The grenade explodes among the advancing Germans. Another grenade, another explosion. Coolidge throws grenade after grenade, crawling forward between throws. He inflicts heavy casualties on the German infantry. But the tanks keep coming. Coolidge realizes the situation is hopeless. The Germans have overwhelming force, tanks and infantry. His small combat group can't hold much longer. If they stay, they'll be overrun and destroyed. Coolidge makes the hardest decision of his life. He orders a withdrawal, but not a panicked retreat, not a rout, an orderly withdrawal by the book professional. He moves from position to position, giving each group specific instructions. You fall back to that tree line. You provide covering fire while this group moves. Leapfrogging back, one element covering while another withdraws. The new replacements who panicked on the first day are now following orders like veterans. 4 days of combat under Coolidge's leadership has transformed them. The withdrawal proceeds smoothly, each man knowing his job. Coolidge is the last to leave. He stays at the position, firing at the advancing Germans, covering his men's retreat. Only when everyone else is clear does he fall back. The combat group reaches American lines safely. 4 days of continuous fighting against a numerically superior enemy force. 4 days in rain and cold, in dense woods under constant attack. 4 days holding a vital position protecting the 3rd Battalion's right flank. Not a single American casualty. Not one man killed. Not one man wounded. Technical Sergeant Charles Coolidge brought every single soldier back alive. His commanding officers immediately recommend him for the Medal of Honor. The recommendation goes up the chain of command. Battalion, regiment, division, corps, army. Everyone who reviews it agrees this is Medal of Honor material. But first, Coolidge has to survive the rest of the war. November 1944, the 36th Division continues fighting in France. They're pushing toward the German border, advancing slowly through determined resistance. December 1944, the Germans launch their last major offensive in the West. The Battle of the Bulge in the Ardennes forest gets all the attention. But the Germans also attack in Alsace, Operation Nordwind. The 36th Division fights in brutal winter conditions. March 1945, the division crosses into Germany. They're fighting on German soil now, pushing toward the heart of the Reich. The German army is collapsing, but individual units still fight fiercely. Coolidge continues leading his machine gun section, still in the fight. May 8, 1945, Germany surrenders. The war in Europe is over. Technical Sergeant Charles Coolidge has survived the entire war without a single wound. He fought from Salerno to Germany, multiple campaigns, hundreds of days in combat. Not once was he hit by enemy fire. Years later, when asked how he survived unscathed, Coolidge gives a simple answer. I credit my faith. June 18, 1945, near Dornstadt, Germany. A bombed-out airfield. Rubble and destroyed aircraft scattered across the tarmac. The 36th Infantry Division is assembled for a special ceremony. Lieutenant General Wade H. Hayslip, commanding general of 50th Corps, stands before the formation. Technical Sergeant Charles Henry Coolidge is called forward. General Hayslip reads the citation. The President of the United States of America, in the name of Congress, takes pleasure in presenting the Medal of Honor to Technical Sergeant Charles Henry Coolidge for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action, above and beyond the call of duty. The citation describes everything. The 4 days of combat, the calm leadership, the failed bazooka, the grenades. As a result of Technical Sergeant Coolidge's heroic and superior leadership, the mission of his combat group was accomplished throughout 4 days of continuous fighting. Against numerically superior enemy troops in rain and cold, and amid dense woods, General Hayslip places the Medal of Honor around Coolidge's neck. This is a battlefield presentation, rare during World War II. Most Medal of Honor recipients receive their medals from the President at the White House. But Coolidge receives his in Germany, surrounded by the men he fought alongside. He's 23 years old. 1945, Coolidge returns to the United States. He's honorably discharged from the Army. He goes home to Signal Mountain, Tennessee. Back to the printing business, back to the life he left in 1942. He marries Frances Seep. They have 3 sons, Charles Jr., William, and Michael. Charles Jr. will follow his father into military service, eventually becoming a lieutenant general in the United States Army. Coolidge goes to work at Chattanooga Printing and Engraving, the family business. He works as a bookbinder, the same job he had before the war. His father, Walter, worked hard to keep the business running during the Depression. Now Charles works hard to keep it running through the post-war years. In 2010, the company celebrates its 100th anniversary. Coolidge is still involved, still working even in his 80s. He finally retires at age 95. Coolidge never seeks attention for his wartime service. He doesn't talk about the Medal of Honor unless asked. He doesn't use his military record for personal gain. He's just Charles Coolidge, bookbinder, businessman, husband, father. But Tennessee doesn't forget. April 10, 1989, a 9-mile portion of U.S. Route 27 in Hamilton County is renamed. The Charles H. Coolidge Medal of Honor Highway, a park on the Chattanooga waterfront, is named Coolidge Park. It features a restored 1894 carousel, a pavilion, an interactive fountain. Families gather there for concerts and festivals, many not knowing it's named after a war hero. 2006, French officials award Coolidge the Legion of Honor, France's highest military decoration, given to recognize his service liberating their country. 2013, the United States Postal Service issues Medal of Honor Forever stamps. Coolidge is one of only 12 Medal of Honor recipients featured on the cover sheet. His portrait, his story, preserved for future generations. February 2020, the Charles H. Coolidge National Medal of Honor Heritage Center opens in downtown Chattanooga, a museum and educational center named in his honor. Its mission is to teach the 6 Medal of Honor values to young people: courage, commitment, sacrifice, patriotism, citizenship, integrity. Coolidge attends the opening, 98 years old but still sharp. He poses for photographs with Marine Corporal Kyle Carpenter. Carpenter is the youngest living Medal of Honor recipient, awarded for throwing himself on a grenade in Afghanistan. The photograph shows 2 generations of heroes, the oldest and the youngest. March 2021, Coolidge is awarded the 2021 George Marshall Award, recognition for his lifetime of service to his country and community. April 6, 2021, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Charles Henry Coolidge dies peacefully at Memorial Hospital. He's 99 years old, surrounded by family. His death leaves only one living Medal of Honor recipient from World War II, Marine Corporal Herschel Woody Williams, who will survive until June 29, 2022. The greatest generation is almost gone. Coolidge's grandson Brad writes the obituary. Tennessee has lost a beloved son and one of its bravest men. April 16, 2021. First Presbyterian Church of Chattanooga. Coolidge's funeral is held with full military honors. The church is filled with family, friends, veterans, community leaders. His casket, draped in the American flag, is carried by an honor guard. He's buried at Chattanooga National Cemetery. A 21-gun salute echoes across the cemetery. Bugler plays taps. The flag is folded and presented to his family. Today, Charles Coolidge's legacy lives on in Chattanooga. The Medal of Honor Heritage Center continues its educational mission. Thousands of students visit each year, learning about courage and sacrifice. Coolidge Park remains a gathering place for the community. The highway that bears his name carries thousands of travelers each day. His story is told in schools, in museums, at veteran events. But most Americans have never heard of Charles Coolidge. They don't know about the bookbinder from Tennessee who saw war coming. They don't know about the sergeant who bluffed an entire German company. They don't know about the 4 days in the Vosges Mountains when one man's leadership saved 40 lives. Here's what the story of Charles Coolidge teaches us. Leadership isn't about rank or position. It's about stepping up when nobody else will. When Coolidge walked into that German company, there was no officer present. He was just a technical sergeant, but he assumed command without hesitation. When his men panicked under fire, he stood up and walked the line. When his bazooka failed, he grabbed grenades and kept fighting. When the situation became hopeless, he ordered an orderly withdrawal and was the last to leave. Every decision, every action focused on one thing: bringing his men home alive. And he did it. Not one casualty in 4 days of continuous combat. Those green replacements who panicked on day 1 were veterans by day 4. They learned from watching Coolidge, from following his example. If the sergeant can stay calm under fire, so can we. That's the power of leadership. After the war, Coolidge didn't leverage his Medal of Honor for fame or fortune. He went back to the family printing business and worked until he was 95. He raised a family, served his community, lived a quiet life. When asked about his heroism, he deflected. "I didn't care about me, I cared about my men," he said. "I'd do anything for them." That simple statement explains everything. True leadership is putting others first. True courage is standing up when bullets are flying. True heroism is doing your duty without expectation of reward. Charles Coolidge lived all of that on Hill 623 in October 1944. And then he came home and lived it every day for another 77 years. Working, raising his family, serving his community, never seeking recognition, never asking for special treatment, just being Charles Coolidge. He's buried at Chattanooga National Cemetery, among thousands of other veterans. His headstone is simple, white marble listing his name and service. But Tennessee remembers, in the park that bears his name, in the highway that honors him, in the museum that tells his story, and in the hearts of everyone who learns about the 4 days in October, when one man's courage saved 40 lives. Charles Henry Coolidge, August 4th, 1921 to April 6, 2021. Bookbinder, soldier, leader, hero. The man who bluffed a German company, walked the line under fire, and brought every single man home alive.